President Trump said this week his administration could cut 65% of the staff at the Environmental Protection Agency. It's just the latest of his moves away from using the federal government to tackle a changing climate. So, if the feds dial it back, now what? Today, I spoke with a former administrator of the EPA. She says states, local governments, and private organizations will have to step up. Joining me now is Gina McCarthy. She is a former EPA administrator, a former White House climate advisor, and the managing co-chair of America is All In. First of all, Gina, thank you for being here.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
First, let's start with the op-ed that you wrote for the New York Times this week. In it, you criticized the Trump administration for the prospect of cutting the EPA staff by as much as 65%. It had me wondering, you painted a pretty dire picture, and it had me wondering as we try to look forward, are states and local governments capable of effectively picking up the ball if the EPA is cut?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think not completely because EPA, has about 18,000 employees. Cutting 65% will cut them off at the knees without question. But EPA is the only agency that really is supposed to take the laws that Congress passed and implement them fully. And so we're filled with experts in how to do that. And so I fear that, short of that, we're going to leave states and cities hanging, not knowing how they can protect themselves and their communities. And so that's, a challenging and pretty daunting task for anyone to pick up. Now, EPA actually gives 40% of the money that it receives from Congress to go to states and cities. So there is a partnership there, but they need the money. They need the resources. They need to build up their capacity so that they're partners with EPA in managing the challenges that we have.
I just want to run through a little bit of your bio here. You led the EPA from 2013 to 2017. Then you became the first White House National Climate Advisor under former President Biden. But you did spend much of your career at the state level. So you're speaking with experience there. First, I want to ask you about what you see as being the most urgent climate policy that all states need to adopt.
I think the most important thing right now is for those states and cities to keep building coalitions together, to keep looking at their opportunities to fill in the gap when the federal government doesn't want to act. And so we are working with mayors all across the country. We are working with governors, and we are working to make sure that they look at where those gaps are and understand that there are ways of filling it and moving that forward. Now, which are most effective? It depends on every state for what they need to do. But one of the things we know we need to do is to protect ourselves from climate catastrophe. That means we have to be fully prepared in every state and city to tackle the cleanup when there is a climate event that happens, but also do their best to explain to people that we need to start building differently. We need to start building our infrastructure more effectively. And so there's lots that we need to do and can do, I think, but it needs to happen, a lot of it now, at the local and state level. Much of it, I hope, will be supported through funding for America is All In and others. I know that's going to happen, but certainly you can't leave the EPA out of the play area here. I mean, they got to be active and engaged.